Hey there, you are listening to the Moxie podcast, and I'm your host, Jenny Nuccio, global social entrepreneur who loves to do a lot of good in this world, and best known for being the founder and CEO of the Moxie Collective. This show started with the simple idea of shining light on ordinary people doing courageous things in this world, and over the years has grown to be a hub of not only courageous conversations, but resources, knowledge, and connection. From topics of sustainability to leadership to, of course, a good dose of social entrepreneurship. If you're looking to grow in your knowledge, develop as a leader, and create a ripple effect of impact in this world, then welcome, Changemaker. It is time to ignite your Moxie. Welcome to the Moxie podcast. We are in a social impact series. We're in part 2, The Social Entrepreneur. So I'm going to give a little caveat here. We have 2 different episodes of this. So if you listen to audio version, it's going to be a little bit different, but with the same tendencies, the same core. And if you're listening, or really if you're watching this on YouTube and you're following the series here, it's probably going to have a slightly different spin. We had some technical difficulties, and I always love to share the uncut version of everything happening behind the scenes. So here we are. So welcome to part 2 of this series, The Social Entrepreneur. Now, we started part 1 with the why, the social impact, right? We do what we do because we want to create social impact. Now, the who is the social entrepreneur. As a traditional entrepreneur, their number one goal is to build a business, to make profit, most of the time then to sell that business. As a social entrepreneur, it's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more multifaceted, right? It involves people, it involves communities, it involves a social justice issue most of the time. And the reality of a social entrepreneur is they don't necessarily come in with strategy, nor are they equipped with the actual business tendencies to make that thought, that vision, that mission come alive in a sustainable and profitable manner. Because the truth of a social entrepreneur is that it starts with that social justice issue. It starts with a community that they want to help. And then the enterprise part, the actual business model part, is almost second thought. Now, that sounds a little silly because we know that the business and the model of that has to be one of the forefront thoughts in our mind to actually make this successful. But as a social entrepreneur, that's not the driving point. The driving point is to create change and to create impact. And so I want to share a little bit. I'm going to read a little bit from my research. My research was focused on the resource gaps for social entrepreneurs. Those resource gaps make up 3 areas. 1, most social entrepreneurs lack financial resources. We start out with a charity mindset. Most of the time, we get donations. Most of the time, this is not everyone's journey, but the history of a social entrepreneur is that it starts out with the mission in mind. And so with that, it involves raising money. And over time, donors can get burnt out, they can have fatigue, or we're just not connected well enough to get more foundations or grants to actually have that social impact occur or happen. So with the financial gaps, there's also social impact issues, there's social sector, social networking gaps. And with social networking, we're missing the people that are going to connect us to the finances. And also with that, if we don't have the finances, we have a human capital problem because we can't get the right people in the door to be able to do the things that we need to do in order to make this whole thing be successful. So as a social entrepreneur, we kind of have all of these gaps that we're running into. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is create really good change, right? All we want to do is create some impact. Now, the one thing that I want us to be aware of is we might have really great intentions, and that impact is not always going to be fruitful or going to be good. And so we want to make sure that our good intentions can align with impact that is transformative for years to come, far after you are gone, like far after you have left. As a social entrepreneur, you do not want to be the linchpin of that success. I see it over and over again when someone comes in and they want to create a transformative business. And that might be in the United States, or that might obviously be anywhere in the world, but they want to create a transformative business. So they go in and they try to do that, but everything lands on them. They don't train and develop people well. They don't have an exit strategy in mind. And so when they leave that community or whatever space they're developing that social enterprise in, most of the time it falters and it fails. And we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure our impact continues to build and continues to grow far after, again, we are gone. So I'm going to read something here in my research and from some of the references and resources that I was able to pull when I was doing this study. It says social entrepreneurs dive in fearlessly to tackle the long-standing, entrenched, and intricable ills of our society with passion and commitment. That's really important. As a social entrepreneur, we're so connected to our why. So we're really passionate. We have a lot of drive and we have a lot of motivation. And most social entrepreneurs have big visions. And they can shed and they can share a large vision at mind because they want to be able to create change within the society that they're in. They're innovative, they're resourceful, and they're always fighting for social change, right? Social entrepreneurs continue to create ways where they're making sure that not only are they growing in their confidence, but their community is growing in that confidence, and they're continuing to immerse themselves so that communities can have a better understanding of the root of the problem that's at hand and to be able to find the solution. Now, what I want us to think of as social entrepreneurs is how we're being mindful of any community that we're going in, that we're not coming in saying we have the solution, but we're actually coming in with a posture of listening, of learning. And when we come in with that posture of entrepreneurs, then we are going to grow a culture. We're going to grow an enterprise that is going to be more successful from the inside out because we're thinking of everybody in mind. That as a social entrepreneur, we want people to understand that their voice is heard. We want to be able to have that driving factor. That again, it's not just us, but we're doing this together. I want to give you a quote from Freire. Freire wrote a beautiful book about the oppressed and the oppressor. And one of the things he wrote is the revolutionary leaders cannot think without the people, nor for the people, but only with the people. I want to say that again, that the revolutionary leaders cannot think without the people, nor for the people, but only with the people. It's important to understand that it's truly through immersion and established relationships that transformation happens. I'm going to throw a theory at you. This is my professor side. There is a theory called diffusions of innovation by Rogers Everett. It's actually one of my favorite theories, along with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and a few others. But diffusions of innovation is very simple. In anything and everything you create, whether a program, whether technology, whether a product, whatever it might be, it has to be diffused into an environment, right? It has to be accepted in order for it to be successful. So in a simple curve of diffusion of innovation, when you have new innovations that come into play, you have early adopters all the way to laggards, people who want to deny the innovation and they take a very long time to adopt it, right? And then you have majority adopters. Most of us sit in the middle, right here where we adopt it. We're either a little bit early majority or late majority, but we kind of sit on that bell curve right there. But you have people who are innovators. And innovators, I find, most of the time land and are defined within the social impact space as social entrepreneurs, because we're constantly thinking of innovative solutions. So you have innovators, you have early adopters that then move into the majority of people who adopt a technology and an innovation. Now, also the reality of implementing a new innovation. And when I say innovation in this regard, it is a program, it's a service, it's a product, it's your business, right? When you're introducing this into a community that might not be of your own, you want to make sure that you have someone of that community that has a voice, that is respected, and that is heard. You will be more successful if you immerse yourself into the community, then you listen and you partner with an opinion leader of that community. Basically, whether that's the chief of the village, or whether that's just a woman who has a lot of influence in the space, or maybe you're very tied to some politicians. That's always good, right? Whoever it is, you want someone that is respected, that is heard, and that can make moves, especially, again, in a community that might not be of your own. For my personal story, right? I come from America and I moved to Kenya. And as much as I'm very much Kenyan now and this is home, I still have a lot of Western tendencies. And in order for us to be successful in different things that we do, I hand that to my team. I hand that to our local team. We are headquartered in Mombasa. We've built up an amazing team here, from our management team to our supply chain to our communication team. Most everything that we do behind the scenes is right here in Kenya. So first and foremost, that's my invite to you. Come see us, come experience what Amani is here. But second, that is the reality of, I believe, why we have been able to be successful, why we have been able to get to where we are today. Because even in all my learnings, the one thing that I come back to is that we have built this together, that we're not just better together, we are our best. And that's because from the very beginning, we immersed ourselves in a program, in a project, in a solution together. It wasn't Jenny coming in with an idea and saying, this is the best idea, but it was us building that together and running with it. From the very beginning, I found the people who were influential in their community, who wanted to be part of that change and who wanted to partner side by side with me. So when you are stepping into a new space, when you are building your social enterprise as a social entrepreneur that wants to make social impact, make sure that you have the right people on your team. And when you have the right people on your team, that diffusion is going to be a lot faster. That acceptance of that innovation is going to happen a lot quicker, because you have the right credibility and you have the right trust that you're building internally, within your team and side by side. So overall, when we're looking at social impact, you can't just be an entrepreneur that is stepping into this space. You are a social entrepreneur. The other day, I'll share a quick story. The other day I was on a flight. I was headed back from New York to Kenya, and I was sitting next to this guy. We were stopping in Portugal, sitting next to him. All those details don't matter. But he actually was in a program in Harvard. He was in his MBA in Harvard, and he was sharing with me all the things that he was learning in business. And I was like, oh, that's so fascinating. And I looked at him, and I was like, sometimes I wish I had that education from the beginning, because the reality of my story is my education is based on leadership education and development. It's based on leadership communications. And I had to learn all the business skills from mentors, from examples, and from experience, right? So as he was explaining to me all his classes, I was like, oh man, that just sounds so fascinating. I wish I had that experience. And I was like, well, actually, I'm a social entrepreneur and this is what I do. Guys, the look on his face when I introduced myself as a social entrepreneur was mind-blowing. He was like, you are what? It was as if I was like a fragile piece of art that he didn't know what to do with and was really scared to walk with, or break or anything, because he was like, oh my gosh, I've heard about you. And I was like, what? And he talked to me and he said, we learn about social entrepreneurs in our class. And I've never met one in person. And for me, it was really a funny situation because I live in this space. If you are a social entrepreneur, you live in this space. And in fact, your title of being a social entrepreneur is quite new. That's within the last 5 years that we actually knew what to title ourselves, right? We've always been entrepreneurial minded. We've just wanted to create really cool impact with a vehicle that could be profitable and take those profits to make more impact. And the reality is that's not what a typical entrepreneur thinks. That's not their framework. That's not their formulaic way of building a business. So as I sat next to him in the plane, he just started asking me all these questions about what it means to be a social entrepreneur and what it means to do the X, Y, and Z. And I was a little bit taken aback because this guy who just graduated with his MBA that has all the skills and all the knowledge was asking poor old me all these questions, even with that degree in hand. So I say that because I want to encourage you that you're an inspiration to many, that you're this fragile piece of art that actually a lot of people haven't met, and that you have a story to be told. You may feel like you're in a saturated space just because you're surrounded by a lot of people doing social impact, but I promise you, you are not. You're 1% of the majority. So continue to do really big things in this world, continue to show up in your space, and continue to be proud of being that fragile piece of art, of being that social entrepreneur that really wants to create transformative change for generations to come. As always, thank you for joining me for the Moxie podcast. It is a joy to be walking alongside you, and I can't wait to see you next week. Moxie on. I love that you were able to join me today, and I'm grateful for the community at the Moxie podcast that continues to grow. To make this show even better, I would love if you could take some time to leave a review, take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your stories, and don't forget to tag the Moxie podcast. I would love to find a way to connect with you. Until next week, friends, Moxie on.